Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tech Talks 101 powered by F Core Labs, bringing to you the latest technological developments in the field of research and development and also the latest technology implementations in this industry. So, with us today, we have another interesting personality who is carrying out his research in optimization for sparse computations. So, without further ado, we'll quickly get to know about this person and move forward with our today's discussion. So he was a former graduate from the Faculty of Engineering of the University of Morocco from the Electronics and Telecommunications Department, and he worked as a software engineer at Cisco Labs Sri Lanka, and he also worked as a research assistant at the School of Information Systems in Singapore Management University, and he is currently pursuing his higher studies in Purdue University at the United States of America, and he is carrying his research under the research topic optimization of sparse computation. So he was also placed the island first in the GCE A-level examination in the year 2013, and also island 15th in the GCE O-level examinations. So please welcome Mr. Aditya Dias. Hello, Mr. Aditya. How are you doing these days? How has life been happening to you there?
Hi, Pamal. Nice to meet you all, and thank you for inviting me to the talk. Life here so far has been really good. Due to COVID restrictions, I was stuck inside the apartment for a while, but now things are getting better. Actually, they even lift the mask requirement last week. So I would say I'm in a pretty good shape here.
Okay, so how is it happening? Do you go to the university physically these days, or are you still working, learning from where you are?
So I joined the campus in January for the spring semester. So spring semester, I was in the apartment having online lectures and all the meetings. But when the summer semester began, I started going to the lab.
Okay.
So first days we were to wear the mask, but now they are lifting the mask requirement as well.
Yes, that's something good to hear about. So it's a great pleasure to have you on board here with us today, and it's a great privilege to have you here. So, before moving forward, could you please tell us a bit about your education background, where you're from, where you have studied, and how you ended up here, going through the journey that you are pursuing right now?
Pamal. So my first school was Christchurch Boys College in Bathegam, and then I went to Richmond College in Cole. I come from Pikkadu area. After my A-levels, I got selected to University of Morocco, and I was an alumni of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering Department. And after that, I worked in Cisco Labs as a software engineer. And then I moved to the United States for my higher studies. And now I am working as a research assistant here at the Purdue Programming Languages Lab. And I am pursuing my PhD in compilers and programming languages research. Yeah.
Yes. So, were you always looking for moving to your higher studies, or is there a specific reason why you took about 2 years to gain any work experience?
Well, I always had the idea to go for higher studies because, in my opinion, I mean, if you consider all the people that are doing jobs, they are working towards the betterment of the society, betterments of the country, and betterments of the world at large. So I believe research has a big component. Research paves the way for us to move develop as humans. All these new technologies coming in. So you wouldn't want to be, having stones and making fires, that kind of scenarios, right? So all these things, they move forward as the research booms. So do you know what they say? The economy is like a bucket. So this bucket, there is so much water that you can pour into this bucket. If you try to pour more than this bucket can hold, the water spills out. So research is what makes this bucket larger and larger. So research brings us all these opportunities. So you have to implement your time. You have to, do research to make this bucket larger. And, since my early childhood, I always had this idea to, become a scientist or do some great research. So I think that's why I came here. And for some people, they believe that going to the industry and getting some experience there might be beneficial when you are doing higher studies. For some people, it may not be the case, but that's how it all worked out for me, and I am happy about it. All these things worked out.
Yes, absolutely. So when you were looking for your higher studies, like what are the options that you were considering? As in, were you specifically focused on a specific field of higher studies? As in, this is the field, that path that I want to continue for higher studies, and then you looked into such opportunities. Or how did you find these opportunities when you were looking for the higher studies?
So I initially applied for computer architecture research, but in fact, I applied for like 10 universities and I got admitted to 4 universities out of those. And 3 of them were in computer architecture research. And one of them was in the field that I am working in, which is not computer architecture basically. So this is basically in compilers and programming languages. So I thought that this might work well for me. And I wanted to change the track, and now I am here.
Okay. Great. So, being there for a very little period of time, how has the experience been so far? How has the United States of America has served you as a country? What is the difference that you feel from learning and growing up in the education system in Sri Lanka and now moving into the United States of America for your higher studies?
A couple of things come to mind. So it's sad to say this, but I feel like as a nation, we are kind of backwards. When I go to the lectures, I see there are people always raising their hands and asking questions. But Sri Lankans and most of, Indians and people from our area in the world are kind of backward to ask questions and try these new ideas. So I think that comes from our culture and the education system and all. I think these things need to be changed. So if I talk a little bit about the, coursework. So I think if you go to Australia, you don't have to take courses. But if you come to the States, you have to take courses to gain knowledge. So it's in a way, you would think that if you go to Australia, I don't have to take all these courses. I don't have to do exams. So that's good. I can focus mainly on my research and then get it done with. But once you come here, you understand that taking courses makes your life much easier sometimes. Because let's say you are working in this research area and you want to learn some things. So the university offers you a course that is specifically suited to your research. And now you are able to go take this course, and which is beneficial for your research and you get your structured knowledge from doing that course. So I think it's a privilege to come here and learn from all these guys in these universities here at the States. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, how has the experience when it comes to the working with academics from different parts of the world? Because when you go through the education system in Sri Lanka, it would mostly be the Sri Lankan people. But moving out there, going into a global crowd of academics, do you see any knowledge gap between different kinds of people coming from different areas? Do you see any major difference between the people coming from different parts of the world?
Yeah, well, like I told, the students from the United States, they are very forward, unlike us. But people from countries like ours, they are a bit backward. But we have all these students from European, and then India, China, and then the States, and then Africa. I meet all these people here. So everyone has their traits. You would think some trait might be disadvantages or some might be advantages, but it doesn't matter. Once you come here, you get into the stream, you start learning things, you start doing research, you start doing some important work. So everyone gets into this stream and adjusts to that. So I think, at the end, it doesn't really matter. You understand how to work with people from other nations. You understand about their culture. You understand everything at large. I mean, you get to know the big picture. I think everything works well, and you don't have to worry about it.
Okay, great. So before moving into your research to talk in depth about your research, so for our listeners to understand, we'll just set the background for them to understand what are the details that they need to understand in order to listen to what you have to say. So your research is on sparse computation, optimization for sparse computation. So could you please tell us a bit about what sparse computation is and what the scope of this sector is?
So I'll try to explain it as simple as possible. So consider a dense data structure like a dense array. So if you take 1 billion elements of a dense array, so it laid out in the memory, so it will be like 4 GB of data. You get the idea how 4 GB of what kind of how large is 4 GB of data. So think about this 1 billion array having holes in the middle with zeros. So let's say out of these 1 billion elements, only 100 elements have values and all the other elements have zero values. So you don't need to store all these elements in the memory. So you only need to store that 100 values in the memory. So so when you do that, you have a new data structure, and then you have to do computations on this new data structure. That is what is meant by the sparse computation.
Okay. So just another follow-up question. When I read through your description of the research, could you please also tell us a bit about what code optimization and what are code generation techniques as well?
Yeah. So like I told before, I work in a compiler and programming languages domain. So what we do is, when I talk about compilers, what a compiler does is it mainly transforms code. So a software engineer may write code in Python or Java or whatever language they want, and but this language computer does not understand it. You need to convert this bit of code into ones and zeros that the computer understands. So compiler is responsible for this code transformation. So let's say a software engineer goes and write a code in a certain way, and then compiler can transform this code in one way. There is not just one way that this transformation can happen. It can happen in many ways. So the way you generate this, the final ones and zeros, results in different ways the code gets executed. So it results in, different execution time. So if you transform it one way, your code will get executed in 1 minute. So if you transform it in a different way, you might be able to execute in 10 seconds. So we are trying to identify these, the best way to do this transformation so that your code runs as fast as possible.
Okay, great. So moving forward from there, could you please tell us a bit about what's the main area of your research, and like what are you working for in this research?
I will try to explain it as like this. So this hierarchy of systems. So if you consider a computer system, there is a hierarchy of systems. At the bottommost layer, there are electrons that are popping up, going here and there. And this layer of work is carried out by the physicist and then chemists. And then there comes the actual hardware. Take, for example, the chip in your computer. That is actual hardware, and the links connecting them. The Wi-Fi chip in your computer that connects you with the Wi-Fi router. So computer architects work on this level, right? And then after this level, you have the operating system layer and then compiler layer. That is the layer I am working on. So if I go a layer above, software engineers work on this level. So all these languages like Python, Java, they work on the operating system layer and the compiler layer. That's how software engineers are able to, write their code. And once they write their code, they build all these amazing applications like YouTube, Google Chrome, and the Zoom application that we are connected through. All these applications are built upon this software these software engineers write. So you get the whole idea how this hierarchy of applications connect the world together and how all these technologies are built upon. In that technology, like I mentioned, there is this layer, compiler layer, that does this transformation that connects the software engineers with the hardware layer below. So this is the layer actually I'm working on.
Okay, great. That's something very interesting to hear about. So moving forward from there, could you please tell us a bit more in depth about, what's the exact thing that you are doing in the research, and what do you expect? What is the expected outcome that you are looking forward to receive from this research?
So I explained to you about what the sparse computation is. So I am trying to optimize this sparse computation, and I mainly work in the graph domain. That is, there is this new field called graph neural networks. You may have heard about machine learning and deep learning, all sorts of these things. So since 2000, I think a decade ago, with this boom in machine learning, people are always trying to, come up with clever ways to train their models, and, artificial intelligence and all these things are coming up. And after some time, in like 2017 or so, they started performing these computations on graphs. So graphs, when you think about it, graphs are a sparse kind of data structure. So let me take an example. So think about Facebook. So let's say we have 1 billion users in Facebook. So, and there are connections between these users. So you might be friends with someone in Facebook, and you might not be friends with someone in Facebook. So if you have a connection, let's say, let's consider kind of a matrix kind of data structure. So you lay out all the users in Facebook in this direction vertically, and then you again lay out all the users in the horizontal direction. And if you have a connection between them, you mark them as 1. And if they don't have a connection, you mark that location as 0. So if you consider this large matrix kind of data structure, you realize that there are more zeros than ones in this data structure, right?
Yes.
So, and when you perform computations on this data structure, like if you perform it in a dense data structure, it will take you like hours of computations and a lot of memory. If you consider, 1 billion into 1 billion matrix, you will need like 10% of all the hard drives in the world to store that kind of data. So we come up with clever ways of representing these kind of data structures. And then my research mainly focuses on generating code to, make these computations happen faster.
Excellent. So
I hope I answered your question correctly.
Yes, on point. So speaking about your research, could you please shall you please move a bit more forward and just talk about like what are the similar other researches going on in the domain? Like what is the future way forward in this domain of research? Any just your idea on that?
As of now, when you think about machine learning, people use frameworks like TensorFlow, PyTorch. At their low level, they are using handwritten functions. Like you have a function that does some computation, and people who are building these machine learning models, they use these functions. So people are trying to come up with clever ways to automatically generate this function that is best suited for your computer. So what I'm saying is, so if you have just one function, it might run very well on a specific computer. Say you are running it on Windows. It will run very well on Windows, but it might not run very well on Mac OS, right? So people are trying to, come up with ways to automatically generate this function so that it's better suited for your hardware. So nowadays, things are moving in that way. And like I told, so like a decade ago, people were working on dense structures, dense computation. Nowadays, and people are working more towards, sparse data structures, working on graphs. Why is this important? Because if you think about a graph, I mean, it's a more generalized way of data representation. Think about drug discoveries. So you have one drug, and you know how it interacts with your body, and you have another drug, you know how it interacts with your body, and you combine them. So it's like a graph. I mean, you have all these connections with all these other things and other domains. And if you think about this as a large, anything can be represented as a graph. So nowadays, people are moving towards, machine learning models in graph data structures. So I think this is a booming field, and I am very, excited to work in this area.
Excellent. So so moving forward from there, so when it comes to research and development in the domain that you are working in, so how do you see the gap between the progress in here back in Sri Lanka and what you're doing there? Why do you think that we are in a state of inability to bring down these research and development facilities and implement them in the universities of Sri Lanka? Because do you believe that we lack in the areas of knowledge, or do you believe that we lack in the areas of resources for these implementations here as well?
Sri Lankan universities have, a good intellect. I mean, the lecturers and professors, they are very good intellects, and they do a very good job in teaching the kids, teaching the students. But if I think about it, there is a gap between what they learn here and what we learn back in Sri Lanka. I think that gap comes from I think here people are Facebook, Google, and all these tech companies are here, and people may get projects from those and funding from those as well. I mean, here they get billions of dollars, trillions of dollars of funding to do their research. I don't think Sri Lanka is in a position like that to, have funding in that amounts. That's one thing. And then the other thing, this knowledge gap is there because I think, most of the people, once they go out of the country to learn, they don't come back to the country. So the number of intellects that is retained inside the country is lower. Most of these people are going out because other countries may have, luxurious lifestyles and higher pay or whatever reason. So I think that is one reason we are a bit lagging behind. But I think things will get better. So let's hope for it.
Yes, let's hope for it. Things should be getting better. So,
yeah, and the other thing is, Kamal, so, these days everyone has internet. So you can always go online and learn things. There are all these, online platforms like Coursera, Udemy, Udacity, edX, and all these online learning platforms. You can learn anything from those online platforms. So you shouldn't, be discouraged that you don't have the ability to learn something. You can always go online and search for it. If you don't have someone to teach it, you can find that online and always learn it.
Yes, that's absolutely true. For anyone who is willing to further and widen their knowledge, the resources and the everything that is needed is there out there, just one click away. So you just have to make sure that you want what you want to go there and learn what you want to learn. So when coming into the last parts of this discussion, Mr. Aditya, so for any undergraduate who is looking into their higher studies and having the slightest of ideas of moving forward in the field of research and development and trying to find opportunities outside of this country, like what is the piece of advice that you could give to them at this particular time?
Yes. So you have to understand that you can't simply know everything. So develop the ability to follow up a tutorial online or try to grasp the basic of any technology and then move forward from here. And don't hesitate to try out new things and don't new things. Doing what you love is the best kind of work that you can do. So you see, there are some people who are good at something but don't like doing it, and there are other people they like something but they are not good at doing it. So you have to find a middle ground and then work on it. Work on becoming a better person of yourself. So having this balance makes your life easier and make you want to do new things, and makes your life easier. And there is this thing I picked from Friends TV series that I wanted to tell you. Joey tells the audience that he lied on his CV saying that he can speak French and that he said he can do horse riding or something like that. So if he gets the chance to act in a movie, then he will go ahead and learn it. So don't be afraid to even say yes to do things that you might not be good at. You can always learn that thing later. And that's how we grow as person. So always keep that in mind. And I hope you all will do really well in your life.
That's very inspiring and a great piece of advice. So one last question, Mr. Aditya. Moving forward in your domain, like in about another 5 to 10 years, where would you see yourself? Like, what are your future aspirations?
For now, I am thinking about following a research career in academics, but I don't know how my life might turn out. I might decide to, become a professor and work in research. Let's wait and see.
Great. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Aditya, for joining with us today for the fourth episode of Tech Talks 101, powered by F Code Labs. So it has been a great and a very inspirational discussion that we have had today with you. So we thank you very much for taking your time off.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, joining with us. So anyone who is listening, if you want to get in touch with Mr. Aditya, you can get in touch with him through Facebook and LinkedIn, if I'm not mistaken. And if you want to ask any further information about his research or about the higher studies, he would be glad to just help you through it. And so anyone who has not viewed our previous episode, you could view it from our Facebook page as well. And thank you very much for joining with us today. So we'll be seeing you again with another episode, another interesting discussion with another interesting researcher in the next week as well. So until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good night. Thank you very much.